Hi, my name is Susie Williams. I'm a modern quilt and textiles designer in Chicago, Illinois, and I've been quilting for 16 years. The B570 Quilters Edition is made especially for quilters because not only does it have great quilting stitches, it also has all of the feet that quilters need when piecing and quilting a quilt. The BERNINA 570 works perfectly in my studio because it utilizes the space really well. It's efficient and it's small but still large enough that I can quilt an entire quilt using just the 570. I love my BERNINA 570 because of the high quality Swiss engineering. I know no matter how thick my quilt is, I'm going to get great tension and perfect stitches every time. BERNINA is the perfect companion to my minimal modern quilt designs. My background is in graphic design, and when I'm sewing with my BERNINA, I really want it to be accurate because the design is always at the forefront of my quilts. I really like getting into the quilt zone. I like fast, regulated stitches, and I know I can always count on that. My favorite feature of the B570 is the BSR. It regulates the stitches based on your speed. So if you're doing a really intricate design and you need to go a little bit slower, it will regulate those stitches for you. But if you're zipping along doing meandering or loops, no matter how fast you're going, your stitches are regulated. The BERNINA dual feed is great for quilters because it feeds the top layer and the bottom layer of fabric equally so that you don't have any puckering or pulling when you're quilting your quilt. The BERNINA hook is why BERNINA is so reliable. It's made of really strong metal, and so when I'm sewing on a deadline, I know I can rely on it no matter how fast I'm stitching. One of my favorite quilting features is the foot hover, so I don't have to lift the foot when I need to adjust my quilt. I do a lot of small quilting, and so I can make tiny adjustments and I never have to move my hands from the quilt. The benefit of all of these automatic features is that it saves me a lot of time. The automatic presser foot lifter lifts your presser foot with just the touch of a button, so you can keep your hands on your project. Adaptive thread tension helps quilters to adjust their tension when they're changing stitches, so we don't have to worry about it. The touchscreen is really easy to use and very intuitive. With the different icons, you always know where to go and which stitch and setting you need to press. The front-loading bobbin is very convenient if you have a project set up on your quilt. So if you are in the middle of quilting and your bobbin runs out, all you have to do is open up the tray, front-load the bobbin, and keep sewing your project. You don't have to move anything. The jumbo bobbin is awesome. It's 70% larger than other standard bobbins, which means I can sew longer without running out of bobbin thread. The B570 comes with a great accessories box that you can either attach or detach depending on your sewing space. All of the feet that come in the accessories box are fully metal, and so they're going to be durable and long-lasting. My favorite is the patchwork foot because of that 1/4-inch seam that all quilters love. The B570 makes me feel like a pro.
BERNINA, made to create.
It is through the work of our hands that the passion of our hearts can be seen by the world. When we create, we make a mark on the world, however small. But put together, each small step can lead to something bigger, a legacy that can carry forward for generations. Let me take you back 125 years to where the BERNINA legacy began on the shores of Lake Constance in the village of Steckborn in Switzerland. You may know me. My name is Karl Friedrich Gegauf. I was born in 1860 to a family of 6 children. My father was a doctor, and as so many parents do, he hoped I might follow in his footsteps. But even as a young boy, I had a fascination with mechanical things. I was constantly creating new ways of doing things. Soon after finishing school, I had the opportunity to work with one of the leading Swiss textile machine manufacturers. It wasn't long, before I found a lifelong passion for textile machines. The precision and creativity of the industry inspired me. I was given the opportunity to travel to the United States, where I was able to learn another aspect of the business, selling the product I had become so passionate about. But it was while I was working as a mechanic in Switzerland, I was dreaming of my own inventions. In 1893, I invented the household hemstitch machine. In my heart, I knew this machine had tremendous potential. So I left my position to start my own company, Gegauf & Company. Our first offices were at the Feldbach in Steckborn. The invention was a success. Together with my brother and 10 employees, we started manufacturing the hemstitch machine. Our machine became a household name both at home and abroad. As the company flourished, so did my family. My wife and 4 children brought great joy to my life. My interest in technical things went beyond my work. I converted my own boat to a steamboat, and I purchased the first car in eastern Switzerland. With all our successes, there were trials too. A fire burned much of our factory. My wife passed away, leaving me to raise our children aged 8 to 15 on my own. War broke out in Europe, but even through these adversities, we persevered. I was always eager to teach my young children about the business, and I spent many hours teaching them mechanics and answering their questions. These lessons sparked a flame in my son Fritz, who developed his own passion for textile machines. Hoping my son would learn not just to build machines, but also to sell them, I sent him to Paris with 50,000 can openers. Though the product was of the highest quality, at first Fritz struggled to sell even a few. It was then that he learned an important lesson that would serve him the rest of his life. He had to demonstrate the product in order to sell it. Once people saw the benefits of the can openers for themselves, Fritz was able to sell them quite easily. Fritz worked by my side until he took full leadership of the company. As the company grew into a new era, he had new challenges to face. The economic challenges of the Great Depression led to declining demand for the hemstitching machine. Fritz knew something had to change to keep the company alive. The inspiration came from home. Fritz's wife was struggling with her home sewing machine, and Fritz saw a problem that needed to be solved. He worked day and night for a year to launch his first home sewing machine. He knew he had created something of the highest quality. Fritz needed a name that could be pronounced in any language, and he also wanted to inspire sewers with the quality of this machine. So he called it BERNINA, naming his invention after the famous Swiss mountain. From the very beginning, Fritz knew that he couldn't sell BERNINA without a dealer network, so he developed strong relationships with retailers throughout the world to sell BERNINA machines. By 1937, 20,000 machines had been sold. Soon, over 1,300 employees were working at the BERNINA factory in Switzerland. Being a passionate engineer and entrepreneur, Fritz continually sought to improve BERNINA. He introduced zigzag machines, then portable models, and then automated buttonholes and clip-on presser feet. His imagination led to the first knee levers, ornamental stitches selected with a simple lever, and complete control over every stitch. As the innovations grew, the quality never diminished. The precision of a stitch from the Swiss BERNINA was unparalleled. It would take great vision to carry on what Fritz had built. And it was my granddaughter, Odette Uelci-Gegauf, who would take up the torch. Odette was everything a leader needed to be, focused, determined and committed. But she brought something more, a strong sense of personal responsibility, a listening ear and a great deal of charm. Odette was one of the first women in Switzerland to serve as the president of a large company. Odette continued the vision of the quality and precision of Bernina, while always keeping an eye to the sewer's needs. Her style and commitment to the end user is reflected in not only Bernina products, but also the advertising manuals and educational materials Bernina became known for. 1971, Bernina launched the iconic 830, a machine that began a love affair with Bernina for sewers worldwide. With every development of a sewing machine, Odette always asked whether this would actually be of any use to the seamstress and whether it was easy to operate. With this in mind, Bernina's first fully automatic machine, the all-electronic Bernina 1130, was developed. Bernina was ahead of the game and took sewing in a completely new direction. Mechanical stitch selector wheels were out, PC boards were in. Odette brought the same energy she gave to her work to her home life and hobbies. Odette enjoyed all types of sports and was the first of the Gegauf family to climb Mount Bernina. As I had done with my son Fritz and Fritz with Odette, Odette began early to prepare her son Hans-Peter to become part of Bernina. For 7 years, Hans-Peter worked in the United States, building experience that would serve him well in the years to come. As HP took the reins of Bernina, his goal was to increase the popularity of sewing worldwide and to foster the creativity of customers. He developed new markets in Eastern Europe, Russia, South America, India, the Middle East and the United States. As Bernina continued to expand worldwide, HP realized the need to expand the manufacturing capability. His vision was not to outsource, but to build a factory managed and designed by Bernina. HP was there to break ground on a new factory in beautiful Thailand. HP was not a sewer himself, but he learned, as his mother had taught him, to listen. He often consulted with his wife Beatrice, herself an expert seamstress. HP also inherited the passion for innovation and quality. As far as Bernina had come, who could have imagined the innovations still to be realized? Machines with the ability to create new stitches, then built-in computers and automated embroidery. Bernina machines continued to be treasured companions for sewers around the world. With a naturally curious and inquisitive personality, HP is continually looking to other industries to explore ideas of modern design and innovative technology that will make Bernina better every day. Perhaps one of HP's most important contributions is his commitment to keep Bernina a family business. He has involved both of his children, Philipp and Katharina, in the Bernina business, so they may continue the legacy of creativity, passion and precision. I couldn't be more proud of the contributions of my family to this remarkable company. But the success wasn't achieved on our own. At every step in our history, Bernina has had the industry's most innovative, energetic and dedicated employees. Each of them has their own Bernina story. And each of you, Bernina's dealers, store employees and brand ambassadors, have built Bernina into the company it is today. I hope that you will share your Bernina stories with each other, your customers and the world. The love of Bernina is in the hearts of employees, Bernina dealers and sewers everywhere. So celebrate 125 years of Bernina with me, and may the work of your hands bring happiness to you and yours for years to come. Bernina is past, present, and most importantly, future. Bernina, made to create.
Hi, I'm Lisa, and I'm from just outside of Philadelphia in the United States, and I'm a professional quilter. I absolutely love what I do. I get to stay at home and work out of my studio, so sometimes I just don't even get out of my pajamas, which is great. I really like the way the Bernina feels. So I knew when I first drove the Bernina that it was just a really smooth machine, and so it really just kind of glides along the top of your quilt. The stitch quality on the long arm is exactly how the stitch quality is on the sewing machine, and that really impressed me. It's manufactured and assembled in Switzerland, and I liken that to very high quality and high standards. So as you're quilting, I always like to say that you have a sweet spot that you quilt in. So even though you have 24 inches of space and you have great visual with that 24 inches, I typically personally quilt in my sweet spot, which is just right in front of me. The nice thing about the Bernina Q24 and Q20 is that the handles are ergonomically correct. You can maneuver them out of your field of vision if you need to, which is really nice. The other really cool feature is that there's toggles on each of the handles, and you can customize them to your preferences. It really saves time in your quilting when everything is really right at your fingertips. So with Bernina, the nice thing is you have 3 different size frames you could choose from. There's a large frame that has leaders that are 132 inches. You also have a classic frame and then also a small frame. The hydraulic lift is wonderful because you can just raise it and lower it, which kind of gives your neck a break. So the Bernina has a stitch regulator, it's called a BSR, and there's 3 different options you can choose from. And the BSR1 is actually my favorite mode, and that's going to give you perfectly spaced stitches. The needle has a constant idle speed, which you can set to slow or fast. The BSR2 is the true stitch regulation. So when you move the machine, the needle starts going. When you stop the machine, the needle stops going. And BSR number 3 is the basting stitch, which you can actually set to 1 stitch per inch, 2 stitches per inch, or 4 stitches per inch. And that's great for when you have to baste your quilt up at the top and down the sides. So on the front of the Bernina, you have a relatively large touch screen, which is really intuitive. You can choose your stitch length on there, anywhere from 1 stitch to 24 stitches per inch. It also has some LED lights along the machine, and so you have a variety of different lighting options for the task that you're doing, which is very helpful. The other thing, one of my favorite features, is that you can preset your favorite threads in there. So if I'm using Aurifil 50 weight thread, I find that perfect tension, I program it in there, and so every time I pull my Aurifil 50 weight thread out, I can just push that button and the settings pop up and you're ready to go. I struggle with threading the needle. There's a needle threader right there for you, and it makes that really easy. So the big thing in quilting right now is computerized quilting, because every once in a while you want that perfect element on your quilt. The Q-Matic is actually the computer component for their Q24 and Q20. Perfect stitches, the design is perfect, it makes it very easy to resize, morph your design into different areas. It's a great tool to have in your arsenal. There's so many different options that you have with a Bernina. Rulers are my thing. I absolutely love rulers because every once in a while you need perfectly straight lines or perfectly smooth curves. And so you have to make sure that you have your ruler kit, which includes the number 96 foot. It also includes a ruler base. And you do also get one ruler in there as well, and it's kind of like a versatile tool. It gives you a straight edge and a little bit of a curve as well. So you'll be set to do any kind of ruler work that you want. Some additional accessories that you can purchase for your machine are the wide variety of free motion feet, and then also the channel locks. The other thing that's nice is the vertical and horizontal spool holder. That's really helpful. The Q24 has a little sister. It's the Q20, and that comes standard in a sit-down cabinet. So instead of moving a machine across the quilt, you're going to actually be moving the quilt underneath the needle. If you decide later on that you would rather have a stand-up machine, you can take your Q20 and put it on the frame. So I think that that's kind of a really nice way to kind of grow with your quilting. Having the Q24 in my studio is having a little slice of heaven, and once you drive it, you just don't want to drive anything else. I absolutely love my machine, and I'm going to encourage you to find a dealer close to you and go and test drive it. Whatever you can imagine, you can pretty much do.
BERNINA, made to create.
Hi, my name is Tula Pink. I am a fabric designer, a quilter, and a sewing enthusiast from the United States. I love BERNINA because it is the most dependable machine on earth. What's really important to me as a sewer is consistent stitch length. I know it's going to be the same every time I sit down in the machine, regardless of what I'm sewing. And that is something that only a BERNINA does every single time. As a quilter, it's important that I can get through several layers of fabric and even some experimental materials, and the power of the BERNINA machine allows me to go through anything. BERNINA is the only sewing machine I use, and the reason I use a BERNINA is because when I turn it on, it does exactly what I need it to do. It's sturdy, it's well built, and it runs smoothly, and it never ever lets me down. BERNINAs are quiet and consistent and powerful machines, and that you can get that much power without the noise of the power, I think is a beautiful thing. That is what quality in a sewing machine means to me. It's less work for me, more work for the machine, and if the machine can handle it, then I don't have to worry about it. BERNINAs are designed with the sewer in mind. You can see everything that you're doing under the needle while you're doing it because of the actual design of the machine, but also because of the LED lights that run underneath the throat of the machine. Those are the things that you need when you're sewing. You need to be able to see your project and know what you're doing. The bobbin case is also brilliantly designed on BERNINAs. You can access it from the front, so you can pop the bobbin out and pop it right back in without actually removing your project from the machine. It seems so simple, but it's crucial when you're sewing all the way into the night and into the early morning. When it comes to cleaning and oiling my machine, it's so simple. I don't have to take anything apart. I clean it, I oil it, and I get right back to work. BERNINA presser feet are unique in that they're made from one solid piece of metal. So your stitches stay completely consistent, and that is largely dependent on the presser foot. I don't need to use a screwdriver to change the presser foot, and that saves invaluable time when you are sewing using lots of different accessories, one right after the other. The straight stitch plate is kind of genius because my fabric doesn't get sucked down into the bobbin case like it used to before I had the straight stitch plate. All these little tiny things that BERNINA has thought of that make everything easier, and you get to a point where you've been sewing on a BERNINA so long that you sort of forget how good you have it until you try to sew on a different machine, and then you're like, oh right, that's why I sew on a BERNINA. The best way to know if a BERNINA is the right machine for you is to just sew on one. I guarantee that anybody that spends even 10 minutes sewing on a BERNINA will understand why I choose BERNINA as my machine over everything else.
BERNINA, made to create.